Every day, millions of immigrants, visa holders, and their families wake up to headlines that send a chill down their spine. Words like revolt, emergency powers, and war threats flood social media. And suddenly, you're wondering, is everything about to change? Will my visa be canceled? Is my family safe? I want you to take a deep breath because today, we're going to cut through the noise together. We're going to separate the alarming headlines from the actual facts, understand what's really happening in Washington, and most importantly, give you the clear, reliable information you need to protect yourself and your loved ones. You're not alone in this, and by the end of this video, you'll know exactly where things stand right now. Let's talk about what's actually happening in Washington right now, because the headlines you're seeing about Republicans revolting against Trump, emergency powers, and threats of military action are creating massive confusion in immigrant communities worldwide. People are panicking, sharing rumors, and making rushed decisions based on incomplete information. So let's be absolutely clear about what's real, what's proposed, what's just political theater, and what it all means for your immigration status today. First, let's understand the context. When you see headlines about Republicans revolting or fighting against certain proposals, this is part of the normal American political process. The United States has a system of checks and balances, which means that even when one party controls the presidency, not every proposal becomes law automatically. There are debates, disagreements, negotiations, and votes. This is actually a sign that the system is working as designed, not a sign of chaos that will suddenly upend your immigration status overnight. Now, let's address the elephant in the room: emergency powers. You've probably seen viral posts claiming that emergency powers could be used to instantly change immigration rules, cancel visas, or deport people without notice. This is where we need to be very careful and very precise. Emergency powers do exist in American law, but they are not unlimited. They cannot override constitutional protections, and they absolutely cannot change your legal status without due process. If you are in the United States legally right now, on any valid visa, with a green card, or as a naturalized citizen, no emergency declaration can simply erase that status with the snap of a finger. Let me be even more specific. Emergency powers under various laws allow the president to take certain actions during national emergencies, but these actions are subject to legal challenges, congressional oversight, and constitutional limits. Courts have repeatedly stepped in when emergency powers have been used in ways that violate individual rights or exceed legal authority. This has happened across multiple administrations, regardless of political party. The American legal system has multiple layers of protection, and immigration status that has been granted through proper legal channels cannot be arbitrarily revoked without notice and without your right to challenge that action. What about the war threats and national security concerns you're hearing about? Again, context matters enormously. Political rhetoric, especially during campaign seasons or times of heightened partisan tension, often includes strong language about borders, security, and immigration enforcement. But there is a massive difference between political speeches, proposed policies, and actual implemented law. Right now, as of today, there has been no declaration of war, no implementation of martial law, and no sudden change to the fundamental immigration system that would affect your current legal status. Here's what you need to understand about how immigration law actually changes in the United States. Immigration law is primarily governed by the Immigration and Nationality Act, which is federal legislation passed by Congress. Changing this law requires both the House of Representatives and the Senate to pass identical bills, and then the President to sign that bill into law. This process takes time, involves public debate, and includes opportunities for legal challenges. Executive orders can modify how existing laws are enforced or prioritized, but they cannot create entirely new categories of deportability or eliminate visa categories that exist in federal statute. So when you see reports about emergency powers being discussed or debated, ask yourself these questions. Is this a proposal? Or is it already law? Has it been challenged in court? What exactly would it change about current immigration procedures? And most importantly, has any official government agency like United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, or the Department of State or Customs and Border Protection, issued any official guidance about changes to your specific visa category or status? Let me address some of the specific rumors that are causing panic right now. Rumor number 1, emergency powers will be used to cancel all work visas immediately. This is false. Work visas like H-1B, L-1, O-1, and others are issued based on federal law and regulations. They cannot be mass canceled by executive action. If you have a valid work visa, it remains valid until its expiration date unless there is a specific individualized reason related to your particular case, such as a violation of visa terms, that would make you removable. That process still requires notice and an opportunity to respond. Rumor number 2, green card holders could lose their status under emergency powers. This is extremely misleading. Lawful permanent residents have significant constitutional protections. The Supreme Court has repeatedly held that permanent residents cannot be deported without proper legal procedures, including notice, a hearing before an immigration judge, and the opportunity to appeal. While it's true that permanent residents can be placed in removal proceedings for certain violations of law, this requires individualized evidence and due process. No emergency declaration changes this fundamental protection. Rumor number 3, international students will be forced to leave if emergency measures are implemented. Again, this misunderstands how student visas work. F1 and J1 visa holders are lawfully present as long as they maintain their student status, meaning they're enrolled full-time at their approved school, making normal academic progress, and complying with work restrictions. Your student visa does not expire just because political rhetoric becomes heated, or because there are debates in Washington about immigration policy. Now let's talk about what could actually change and how. Executive orders and policy memoranda can change enforcement priorities. This means that immigration enforcement agencies might focus their resources differently, prioritizing certain types of cases over others. For example, one administration might focus heavily on border enforcement, while another might prioritize interior enforcement or worksite investigations. These shifts in priority can affect your day-to-day experience and the level of enforcement activity you see, but they don't change whether your visa is valid or whether you have legal status. Regulations can also be changed through a formal process called notice and comment rulemaking. This process requires the government to publish proposed changes, allow the public to submit comments, review those comments, and publish a final rule. This process typically takes many months, and the rules can be challenged in court. So even when regulations change, it happens gradually and with public notice, not overnight. What should you be doing right now to protect yourself? First and most importantly, make sure all your immigration documents are current and in order. If your visa is approaching expiration, start the renewal or extension process well in advance. If you're eligible to adjust status or apply for a green card, seriously consider doing so. If you're a green card holder who is eligible for citizenship, this is the time to strongly consider naturalizing. United States citizenship provides the highest level of protection against any immigration policy changes because citizens cannot be deported, cannot have their status revoked except in cases of fraud in obtaining citizenship, and have full constitutional protections. Second, keep copies of all your immigration documents in a safe place. This includes your visa approvals, entry stamps, employment authorization documents, travel documents, and any correspondence with immigration authorities. If you ever need to prove your legal status quickly, having organized records is essential. Third, understand your rights. In the United States, everyone, regardless of immigration status, has certain constitutional rights. You have the right to remain silent if questioned by law enforcement. You have the right to refuse consent to a search of your home or belongings in most circumstances. You have the right to speak with an attorney before answering questions in an immigration enforcement situation. Knowing these rights and how to exercise them respectfully is crucial. Fourth, be extremely cautious about where you get your immigration information. Social media is full of well-meaning people sharing rumors, partial truths, and outright misinformation. Some of this misinformation is spread deliberately to create fear and panic. Other times, people simply misunderstand complex legal situations and share incomplete information. Always verify any immigration news through official government websites. For United States immigration, that means checking uscis.gov, the Department of State website at travel.state.gov, and official announcements from these agencies. Fifth, if you're facing any immigration issue or decision, consult with a licensed immigration attorney, not a notario, not a visa consultant, not a document preparer, but an actual attorney licensed to practice immigration law. Immigration law is incredibly complex, and the consequences of mistakes can be severe. An experienced attorney can evaluate your specific situation, explain your options, help you understand risks, and represent you properly. Let's talk about what this political conflict actually means in practical terms. When Republicans and Democrats disagree about immigration policy, or when members of the same party disagree with each other, this can actually slow down dramatic changes. Divided government or internal party disagreements mean that sweeping changes become harder to implement, not easier. Bills get stalled, compromises have to be reached, and the status quo often continues while political battles play out. This is very different from a situation where one party has overwhelming control and unanimous agreement, which would allow faster policy changes. The discussions about emergency powers you're hearing about are largely political positioning and debate about what should be allowed, not announcements of what is actually happening. These debates have been happening for years across multiple administrations. Presidents of both parties have used emergency declarations for various purposes, and courts have consistently placed limits on how far those powers can extend. The fact that these debates are happening publicly, with opposition being voiced, is actually a sign that the system of checks and balances is functioning. Regarding military involvement or war threats, it's important to understand that immigration enforcement in the United States is primarily a civilian function carried out by agencies like ICE, Customs and Border Protection, and USCIS. The military has very limited legal authority to engage in domestic law enforcement due to the Posse Comitatus Act. While the military can provide logistical support and can operate in border regions, they cannot generally arrest civilians or enforce immigration law directly. Any expansion of military involvement would face significant legal challenges and would require specific statutory authority. What about the future? It's natural to worry about what might happen next week, next month, or next year. While no one can predict political developments with certainty, immigration law has proven remarkably stable in its fundamentals over many decades. The basic visa categories, the green card process, the requirements for citizenship, the structure of immigration courts, all of these have remained largely consistent even as administrations change and political rhetoric shifts. Changes do happen, but they typically happen incrementally and with advance notice, giving people time to adjust their plans. This doesn't mean you should be complacent. It means you should be informed, prepared, and proactive rather than panicked. Monitor reliable official sources for actual policy changes. Keep your status valid and your documents current. If you have options to strengthen your immigration position, such as applying for permanent residency or citizenship, pursue those options actively. Build a relationship with a qualified immigration attorney who knows your situation, even if you don't need their services immediately. One more critical point. Be very careful about scams. Whenever there's uncertainty or fear in immigrant communities, scammers emerge promising quick solutions, guaranteed approvals, or special access to immigration benefits. They might claim they can expedite your case through special contacts or that you need to pay immediately to preserve your status before new rules take effect. These are almost always fraudulent. All immigration applications have official filing procedures and fees. No one can guarantee approval of a discretionary application. If someone is pressuring you to pay money immediately or promising results that sound too good to be true, walk away and report them to the Federal Trade Commission. Remember, the American immigration system, with all its flaws and complexities, is still fundamentally a system of law, not arbitrary power. Courts matter, procedures matter, documentation matters, and rights matter. Yes, policies can shift, enforcement can intensify or relax, and the experience of being an immigrant can change significantly, depending on the political climate. But your valid legal status, properly obtained and maintained, remains your status regardless of who is in office or what political battles are being fought in Washington. For those of you in other countries watching American immigration politics and wondering whether you should still pursue opportunities in the United States, this is a personal decision that depends on your individual circumstances, risk tolerance, and alternatives. The United States continues to issue millions of visas every year, processes hundreds of thousands of green card applications, and naturalizes hundreds of thousands of new citizens annually. The country's economy, educational institutions, and innovation ecosystem continue to attract and benefit from immigrants. Political rhetoric and policy debates don't change these fundamental realities overnight. If you're already in the United States legally, stay calm, stay informed, maintain your status, know your rights, and seek proper legal guidance when needed. Don't make panic decisions based on social media rumors. Don't overstay your visa or violate your status because you heard something might change anyway. Don't abandon a valid green card application or citizenship process because of political uncertainty. These decisions should be based on your individual circumstances and proper legal advice, not fear. The situation in Washington is fluid, and debates will continue. That's the nature of democracy and representative government. But immigration law changes through specific, documented processes, not through headlines or social media posts. When actual changes happen that affect you, they will be announced through official channels with implementation dates, not discovered through viral videos or rumor mills. We're going to continue monitoring this situation closely and bringing you accurate, fact-based updates as real developments occur. This is why it's so important to subscribe to Immigration News Today and turn on notifications so you get reliable information instead of panic-inducing rumors. If this video helped you understand what's really happening versus what's just political noise, please hit that like button and share it with your family, friends, and anyone in your community who might be worried right now. Leave a comment below telling us where you're watching from and what immigration topics you'd like us to cover next. Together, we can cut through the confusion and make sure everyone has access to the truth. Stay informed, stay calm, and remember that knowledge is your greatest protection in uncertain times.